first bill that we're going to be hearing is Senate Bill 97 by Senator Crowley, an act relating to human services, homeless shelters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This bill is a very simple bill. What it simply says is that we're going to establish a committee to promulgate rules and regulations for homeless shelters. How I look at it is this: if you're homeless, there shouldn't be, well, your hair's too long, your speech isn't right, or you wear the wrong clothes or you're the wrong orientation. What we want is to have a committee of people to come together and say, all homeless shelters' purposes are to put a roof over the head of a person who has no home. And it's got to be safe, and the environment has to be right. And we want to make sure that all areas of homeless shelters are represented. There will be numerous people added to the committee. I just think it's a good bill. At this point, though, there will be a survey coming in this language that has to be changed as far as constitutionality of the bill.
When we get that survey, we'll discuss the details of that. These bills will be for hearing only. We have several people lined up to speak. And if you haven't signed up, please do so. I would ask that if you would keep your comments brief and short, we would certainly appreciate it, as other members also have other hearings and bills to be heard in other committees. So we certainly appreciate your presence. So the first person that I'm calling is Barbara Khalil.
Yes.
From the Rhode Island
Homeless Advocacy Project.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Barbara Khalil, and I am one of the co-directors of the Rhode Island Homeless Advocacy Project. For the past 2 years, RIHAP has been working on this piece of legislation with the help of our fellow constituents. They have given invaluable insight to what really matters to them while they're experiencing homelessness and staying in shelters. As a formerly homeless woman, I too remember how it felt when my concerns over bad practices in shelters were not being heard. So this piece of legislation will bring a committee together from all parts of the homeless and service provider community to discuss and bring about standards for shelters that everyone can live with. The bottom line is this: the health and well-being of our most vulnerable population must be our #1 concern. In addition, the standards will force accountability in the shelter system. In the words of Linda Kaufman, the National Movement Manager for the Zero 2016 campaign, we need to be paying for what works and nothing else. While we are working on reaching functional zero for our veterans and chronically homeless by the end of 2016, we also need to be aware that we need to be making sure that our residents in homeless shelters are being taken care of and service providers are held to the highest standards.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Khalil?
Can you give a very, very brief overview of what you think is not correct in standard? What form of being a homeless person? What specifically can you point out?
So I would think a lot of complaints that we get are that if they're too crowded and that they're in places where, imagine this, you're in a shelter where you're literally inches away from the next person. You're laying on a mattress, a mat on the floor, and you're inches away. Also, some of them don't even have enough showers for people. People can be thrown out of shelters for no apparent reason, for reasons that you and I would say, why are they throwing somebody out for talking on the phone to their husband? And this does happen in shelters where you're not supposed to have any contact with your male or female. Those are lots of things. I mean, we're talking about healthy shelters. We're talking about making sure that people are safe. People don't want to go into shelters because they're afraid that they're going to be harmed in some way. So we need to make sure that people are safe, they're well taken care of. Those are just some of the reasons.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank you. Jim Reisig, the Rhode Coalition for the Homeless.
Right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's always an honor to come before this committee. The Coalition for the Homeless actually is the fiscal agent for the Rhode Island Homeless Advocacy Project. So they are us, we are them, and we're very honored to do that for them. We are here in very strong support of this legislation. We always ask the constituency that we represent what they think their most pressing issue is, and if there is legislation that needs to be introduced to fix anything, we support them. The Homeless Bill of Rights was one just such a successful piece of legislation. To be sure, this is needed. We actually have to have this conversation among our members. To be clear, most of our members do not do anything that violates anybody's rights. But to be clear, we do get complaints that are along the lines of what Ms. Khalil was talking about. And we intervene all the time to try and rectify those things with some members. It would really be a benefit to have a committee come together to discuss fully what should be the standards that shelters are operating under. There may be issues of costs that come up depending on what the shelter standards eventually say. But my point on that score is to say, if we have a cost that guarantees that we have heat, if we have a cost that guarantees that we have toilets and enough showers for the number of people who are staying in the shelters, then we need to have those types of conversations. We shouldn't be avoiding them just because it's convenient to avoid them. So we stand in line with the Rhode Island Homeless Advocacy Project and strongly urge passage of this bill.
Question, Senator Miller.
It seems like a really great idea, but is there any concern from those who've been developing the legislation that at least initially it could have the impact of less beds because of the standards and people not immediately being able to reach them?
Sure, that is a concern. I mean, we're going to go through a process, and that's what the legislation is asking the HRC, Housing Resources Commission, to do. As a commissioner, I can say the Housing Resources Commission is one of the most collaborative, thoughtful bodies that you would want. It's what state government should be. And so all the different types of issues that will come up there. And then if there are issues of, are we going to be decreasing beds and what does that mean? We'll be working with the State Office of Housing and Community Development and Rhode Island Housing and others who have a way to fund winter shelter, figure out how to mitigate that problem in the short term. But if we're also successful in other ways, Senator Crowley has a funding bill in, Senator Pichardo has a prioritization bill in for veterans. We're talking about the idea of possibly having bonds come up again next year. We should be decreasing the population along the same lines, the same time that we're actually increasing the shelter standards.
Who's going to answer this question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Reisig, I was sort of moved by this flyer. Is it really true that there are shelters for the standards for animal shelters, but not for human shelters? Interesting.
The state-funded shelters do have what's called the program assurances, but if you do not accept state money, you beholden to any of those programs.
And then, Mr. Chairman, I have a question. If we do enact standards, does that also enact sort of a cause of action if somebody doesn't comply with those? Or what happens if your beds are too close or you don't have enough showers? I mean, does somebody sue the state, or is it more?
I don't know what the remedy has been, and John can probably talk about that when he testifies, but I know there is a remedy that's involved in the bill to discuss with the committee on what would happen in that case, yes.
Just curious.
Yep. We've been very clear that we have remedies all across state government for not following things, and they are in state and statute, but that doesn't mean advocacy doesn't cease to then help entities enforce those standards.
I have a question. Last year, there was a testimony, concern. I don't know if there was a opposition from a Providence Rescue Mission in Providence. Did you have, part of your membership, and also have you had any conversation with them and see how to address their concern? And also, have there been others who with our providers who said, hey, wait a second, we need to be at the table, can we talk about some concerns?
My understanding is there were two areas of concern. One was among domestic violence shelters, who are part of our coalition as well. And I believe that there have been conversations with RICAP and worked through the legislation, and it's something they're satisfied with. The rescue mission, I have had conversations with Sean. The rescue mission is not part of our membership. They are not funded by any, they do not accept anything but private money, so they do get to operate certainly as they wish. I think that we should have standards that at least speak to health and safety and accepting of people and not discharging people for reasons that are irrational. I know that RIHAP did reach out several times to Mr. Carew, twice through me, and I do not believe that that was scheduled. I believe he just had several opportunities to meet with them to discuss his concerns, but that didn't happen.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I did call 3 times, and I left messages for him to, so we could meet and talk about things that I know he was concerned about, and he did not return my phone call, so I did try.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you. Susanna Smith, Rhode Island Now.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson and committee members. My name is Susanna Spalding Smith. I am the policy coordinator for the Rhode Island chapter of the National Organization for Women. And we have submitted written testimony in strong support of this bill because of our concern about the high numbers of women and children who are homeless in Rhode Island. You may recall a 2011 study by Crossroads Rhode Island that was looking at who had become homeless in the previous decade. And that study showed that the number of women who had become homeless rose by a staggering 65%. The current data available from the Rhode Island Coalition for the homeless shows that there are 4,067 homeless people in our state. Of these, about 30% are women. That is 1,180 Rhode Islanders, and about 25% are children. That's 986 Rhode Islanders. We believe that the guidelines outlined in Senate Bill 97 are particularly important to identify those services and protections that are most important to women and children: gender identification, sexual orientation, counseling supports, appropriate and healthy recreation, and socialization of children. We believe that these are important not just for identifying these protections and services, but also for making sure that they remain available and aligned with the guidelines that we hope will be followed in every shelter, namely confidentiality, privacy, dignity, and safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much. Donald Monroe. Welcome, Mr. Monroe.
I'm Don Monroe, and I've lived in a shelter for 2 years. And I've lived at Bourbon Lee for a year, and I'm living at Hamilton Hall right now. But when I was living in shelter, there were 60 men. We also had to live with bed bugs, mice, beds, and bugs and mildew, and we only had two showers with 60 men. But it was a very nasty place. But when it closed down, I moved to Harrington Hall. Now, Harrington Hall is supposed to house 120 men, but now it's housed, last night, 150 men. The men were living on floors, some were living on chairs. When I got up this morning just to sit down and have a drink of water and relax for a few seconds, there were no chairs available because people were sleeping on them. So we're overcrowded. Once again, we only have 3 toilets for 150 men, 3 showers for 150 men. So how do you get a shower? Shower hours are from 6 to 9, 4 to 6 in the morning. So you got 5 hours for showers for 150 men. Taking a shower, buddy?
Every day.
I'm not. Am I going to the toilet every day? Sometimes I go outside, because I can only do it inside, I can't get to one. That's why we're crying for shelter standards, you can see that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any questions? No questions. Thank you very much. Thanks for that. Brian Gilbert, Brown University.
May I speak for myself or?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I'm a member of housing opportunities for people everywhere, which is an organization of Brown students, as well as an outreach worker for RIHAB. I just want to address the part of the bill that deals with discriminatory practices by shelters on the basis of disability or sexual orientation, etc. And the point is that the discrimination that homeless individuals face in our shelters is the same adversity that they face in their personal lives, which causes them to become homeless in the first place. So if we allow discrimination like this to take place in our shelters, we're shooting ourselves in the foot by refusing to assist the individuals who are already the most vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? None. Libby Bunsley?
Close enough.
Bunsley? Is it Bunsley?
It's Bunsley.
Bunsley.
My name is Libby Bunsley. I'm also a student at Brown University and an intern at the Rhode Island Coalition for the Homeless. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I just wanted to vocalize my strong support for this bill. I think that it's long overdue to have basic standards for shelters to operate. These are housing, like Brian said, our most vulnerable individuals, neighbors, citizens. And another thing that I wanted to point out, this bill does require shelters to document services in the homeless management information system. I was actually really surprised to see that not all shelters are already doing that. If we want to be working towards an efficient system that moves people out of shelters as soon as possible, we need to be tracking that data and doing something that's collaborative. So that's just what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Any questions about Ms. Bunsley? Thank you very much. Paul Friedman?
I can't just speak from here, my
Sure.
counsel.
No, actually, come forward, because now we have Senator Rex.
I thank you for your time. I know that homelessness is a huge problem in the state, and I just want to vocalize my support for this bill.
Thank you very much. Glad Brian and Wesley students are getting involved. That's great. Andrea Smith, of the Homeless RI.
Hi, I'm Andrea Smith. I'm one of the founders of Help the Homeless in Rhode Island. I'm also an outreach worker. 66% of our homeless are mentally ill. And one of the things that always strikes me is they don't do well in crowds. So you put them in a shelter that's overcrowded, and they can't even deal with the stress and the anxiety of being in those situations. And I also think that if we have shelter standards for animals, and we have housing shelters, housing standards, then our shelters for our people should also have standards.
Any questions about that? Senator Miller.
You brought up a good point that 66% are mentally ill. Would you be pursuing and creating a standard that a shelter should at least facilitate access to services,
Yes,
including mental health?
absolutely. Should be access to services. All shelters should have access to services. What's the point of a shelter if it's not going to connect people to services? Because that's the only way we're going to end the problem.
No further questions? Thank you very much. Sam Title? J.D. Fishman.
Thank you, Chairperson. I just have a few comments. I've worked with home shelters from my home state of Maryland, and where these standards are in place. So I'm firmly supporting these similar standards to this.
Question, you said Maryland has the standards?
Yes, they do.
Thank you. Any other questions? Johan Lubenthal or John?
Thank you for your time. Yeah, I'm kind of new to this project, but from what I've heard personally, and especially this flyer really got me. I didn't know that we have standards for animal shelters, but we don't for human shelters, and that just seems a bit absurd to me. But I just wanted to express my support for the passing of this bill. Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions for David? David, what state are you from?
I'm from Georgia.
Georgia?
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any standards there that you know of?
I don't know.
Nathaniel Conrad, Brown University. And we have Evan.
I'm going to be brief. I just wanted to also vocalize my support for this bill. I think it seems long overdue as well. I'm from Virginia, and I don't know whether we have any standards. I certainly hope we do.
We're happy that you're engaging on the issue. We need to have our voices.
We'll do some research and find out what states have standards. So
All right. Is it Evan or Aaron? Turnoff?
Thank you. I was also going to be brief, just to provide my support. I'm from New York. I've helped out in shelters there, and I know how homeless people often feel very low, and it's a hard time of their lives, and any support that we can give them would be very appreciated.
Thank you. Daniel Rabin.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman. I'm from Arizona. Arizona also has standards for the homeless, and I think it's long overdue that Rhode Island also gets similar treatment for our most vulnerable population.
Thank you. Any questions on this? Is it Rabin or Robin?
Rabin.
Rabin. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, just one comment. It's great to see so many young people concerned about homelessness.
We have Jim Sullivan from Riverwood.
He's not here yet.
He's not here. Megan Smith, House of Hope, Community Development Folk.
Good afternoon, Chairman of the Committee. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I have worked in the homeless community for a decade since I started with housing opportunities for people everywhere as a Brown student. And since then, I've continued to work in the homeless community in a variety of capacities. I'm an outreach worker, I'm a case manager. And also, I think most relevantly for the purpose of this bill, I've been a facilitator of a shelter, both for individuals, for men experiencing homelessness, and also for women who were victims of domestic violence. And I want to emphasize that this bill is an opportunity for collaboration amongst service providers and constituents and all other stakeholders. And any sense that this bill is in placing any population in opposition to another is completely false. As someone who works on the service provider end of things as well as the advocacy and organizing end of things, I absolutely welcome this legislation as a valuable opportunity for collaboration and also a tool that service providers can utilize to themselves advocate that their facilities are able to be brought up to the standards and that their services are able to be brought up to the standards that they know that their folks served are deserving to have. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Smith? None. Thank you very much. Stephanie Geller, Olympic College. Yes, we do. We have here. Anyone else that's not signed up? Thank you very much for your testimony.
Great, John Freitas signed up. He's
John Freitas, no. Oh, it's down. Yeah, you signed up. Maybe not.
Yeah.
There's spaces in between. Yeah. Welcome, John.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is John Freitas. I'm with RIHAP. I'm the outreach coordinator. My hardest job is getting people to go in the shelter, no matter what the weather, what the temperature. Because they won't hear horror stories or experience that. I'm formerly homeless. I lived in the shelter. I found housing out of a shelter without the help of the shelter. And on the last day, I asked them, how did this happen that I had some privileges other people in the shelter didn't? That's when I was told I was in the First Step program, which they received money for. And I mentioned to them, you've never even done an intake. So how did you move me through your system? This is going to stop. There's men that lived in shelters for over 10 years because the agencies aren't doing what they need to do to move men through. SERDA 2016, in order for it to be successful, I believe it can be done. We have to get everybody on board moving in the same direction. We can't have turf wars. We can't try and redefine ourselves to accept to be moved away from being accountable. You brought up the Providence Rescue Mission. I've also stayed with the Rescue Mission. I've seen girls thrown out for wearing too much makeup, for dressing too provocatively. Barbara was thrown out of the shelter because she was speaking to other girls that they needed to come to a meeting on homelessness the next day. They don't allow debate. Shelters right now have no accountability. And as Jim Lysak said, the majority of the shelters are willing to do the right thing. And they try. But on occasion, you'll have a staff person having a bad day and tell the person, you have to leave because I don't like you. And the person leaves and there's no recourse. We have all kinds of committees that are supposed to handle grievances from the shelters. But even if they hear a grievance, there's no enforcement. You asked about, someone else asked about, what if they don't? Well, we're pushing to have a monetary fine assessed. If you have an animal shelter who's in violation and they don't clean it up, they get fined. We've heard concerns. What if we lose beds? We heard that when we tackle urban league. Where are those guys going to go? Hey, guess what? Today, most of them guys are in housing. And others are moving into housing. We'll find a way. I would rather do that than have people live in subhuman conditions. As Don said, 3 showers, 3 toilets for 150 men. And I don't call House of Hope. They've done a wonderful job of taking anybody that shows up on the doorstep. It's the shelters that don't do that, who look to exclude rather than include. The shelters that don't want you to have a conversation with them about making changes, because this is the way we've always done it, this is the way we're all going to do it, you don't like it, move. And I've been told that in a shelter. You don't like the way we do things, go somewhere else. We did. We set up a little tent city down there called Camp Ronald. And we did it better. And we did it for no state dollars and no city dollars. We need to get people in the housing. We need to get them out of shelters. I want to be out of business in 2017 because they're on them all. This legislation is for now. I hope the day comes the commission can say we don't have anything else to do. That's right. 2 years we've been trying to push this through, and it's been an open process. We had Crossroads at the table. We had House of Hope at the table. We had all the players, and it was an open invitation for every meeting. We went through the standards, line by line, word by word, and came to an agreement on each one. We invited the Providence Rescue Mission, they never showed. One more point, there's over 150 communities across the United States, state, county, and city that have shelter standards. We're not the first. We clicked it on the first day we had this idea, we clicked on the computer, and this whole list of organizations came up in cities and states. And I got to tell you, we plagiarized like a son of a gun because it all came from other places. and they all make sense. So to say that we don't need them is wrong. We need them now, we need them yesterday. I don't want to ever hear somebody telling me I'm sleeping on a bench that I get thrown out of a shelter because I asked if I could take a shower. I thank you for your testimony, and we really hope this bill goes through, and we ask for your support.
Thank you, John. Any question of Mr. Freitas? Seeing none, thank you very much. That concludes testimony. Oh, Senator
Comments,
Clifford.
not a question, but Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I want to thank you, Mr. Chairperson, and Senator Crowley, and others for sponsoring this. I'm moved by all of your testimony, especially when I echo Senator Crowley, thanking the Brown students, especially for being here as a Brown graduate. I'm aware of our commitment to social change and social justice, so thank you all. And it does occur to me that, if our state, money is tight, obviously, but if our state can find money to accommodate in a state tax reduction, corporate tax reduction, whether it's public dollars or private philanthropy, our state must find money so that people can live in a manner that, in shelters that wouldn't violate shelter standards. And when I hear about 120 managed bathrooms, I know it pains us all. And I thank you both for your sponsorship of it and the others who sponsored it, and I sure hope we can pass this bill this year.
Thank you.